I feel that the SEC is unlikely to approve a spot ETF for Bitcoin in 2023 for several different reasons. And a lot of those reasons revolve around the fact that they sued everybody. They sued Binance, Kraken, Coinbase, Gemini, Bittrex, the list goes on. So, if they sued all these exchanges where the price would be derived from, to me, it looks like that was a strategic play to say, well, we can't do it because all these outfits, all these companies had securities violations and issues pertaining to these security laws. And again, I spoke before, if you go down on CoinMarketCap or CoinGecko and you go through the top 20 assets on those, different pages, the majority of that stuff is suspected securities: Cardano, Polygon, Solana, BNB, the list goes on and on and on. So that being said, I just think that was, again, a strategic play, and they'll be able to further delay. Now, that being said, I just want to make it very, very clear, I'm very bullish on Bitcoin, Ethereum, and the cryptocurrency market in general. It will bang again, 100%. We will have another bull market, without a doubt. We've got all kinds of stuff going on, and you got to think, where do you put your money? And this has been an ongoing thing for the last couple of years, because you look at all the printing and stuff, and about the time it seems like, okay, the money supply is being choked off, high interest rates, this and that, and then there's all this additional printing. We've got this potential war in the Middle East, and there's all these things going on, and most people, for the most part, would be pretty shocked at the amounts of spending that is going on. And if the projection stays true and they continue to print as much as they are, the U.S. is at $33.65 trillion of debt, and in 1 year, we will be over $40 trillion in debt, and it is absolutely going parabolic. So then you have to sit there and think, well, are the housing prices going to come down as much as we think? Now, there's some statistics that came out that said if you adjust it for the median incomes, housing prices in a lot of these major cities would have to drop 35% for it to be affordable, to where someone's spending less than, let's say, 35% of their income. So properties are very, very unaffordable in most parts of the United States, and Canada is way, way worse. Australia's obviously in a really bad shape, and the UK's in a really bad shape as far as that's concerned, and many other nations as well. I'm sure New Zealand is way out of whack as well. So a lot of this stuff, you sit there and think, okay, you definitely need to have a position in crypto, no doubts about it. Now, I think this is going to continue to trade in a particular range. It's going to kind of bebop around, and traders are going to kind of trade in and out and kind of ride the waves. But I don't think you should be caught without having positions in at least, kind of the major players: Bitcoin, Ethereum, BNB, maybe some Dogecoin, Litecoin, Monero, this kind of stuff. For many, many reasons, mainly because of this excess printing, and we don't know what's going to happen. My dad was looking at a pickup truck, and he was kind of shocked because, the truck was a little bit older and it had a lot of miles. It was like 180,000 miles, and it's like a 2008 Chevy Silverado 4x4. And, it was listed for $9,000. It was sitting at the side of the road. He just felt like that was really expensive. And it's like, that's the situation. One of the cars that I purchased over 4 years ago, it seems to be actually have more value to it now with higher miles than it had 4 years ago compared to the US dollar, because of this absurd inflation. And then now we have all these strikes with the UAW. Ford and General Motors could very likely end up going bankrupt over this whole thing. And, and I'll take a very neutral position on it. I don't really fault the workers per se. They feel like they're being pressed. They can't pay their bills. And you just see such a large amount of people. Now, we would say that it's kind of egregious that 15% of the U.S. population has car payments over $1,000 a month. But that being said, that's kind of what they're being pushed into, for, this is what this truck is. This is how much it's going to be per month. And then they go for this. And I was talking to this chick, and, it was just kind of surprising not surprising, but it just what it was. And she was basically saying, she wanted her payments to be under $600 a month, which to me, that sounds absurd. I've always paid all cash for my cars. And that particular vehicle I bought over 4 years ago, you know, it had to be in the shop. There was a particular power steering issue. You couldn't get to the line that it was. I wasn't tooled up to do it. You needed a lift, and you had to come up and take the exhaust out and everything else. So, you know, it's an Audi. And, you know, it's just, those things weren't built to be worked on half the time. So anyway, it was what it was. That and some other repairs, it basically cost $1,500. Never a fun process. You just had to be done. And, you know, I didn't even tell her how much it cost. She just knew that it was in the shop. And she was saying, you know, it just sounds like a money pit. And I'm thinking, I own the car all cash. And, okay, I spent a little bit of money to get these repairs done, but the car's worth more than it was 4 years ago, even though it has more miles on it now. And she's paying $600 a month for her vehicle. But in her head, oh, my car sounds like a money pit. A few months in, you know, and she spent more, you know, just making these payments, you know, than I spent, you know, and hopefully, you know, the repairs last, and, you know, I don't have to have more additional repairs on that and stuff. But it's just kind of the mindset of people. So where do you put your money? Put in these vehicles, they sort of appreciate in value, and it's kind of in some respects, you know, dumb luck in some regards that, you know, you'd have these vehicles and then the value according to the US dollars went up. Some of these properties obviously have appreciated in an incredible amount, but you're seeing cracks in the system already. Look at the properties and the price reductions in a place like San Francisco. It's all out, you know, anarchy over there. Just all the, you know, all the store break-ins. Nobody can really run a business in a place like that, and people are evacuating. Anybody with money is trying to get really kind of out of San Francisco, and you already see those cracks forming in those places like that. Places like Austin, Texas, places like Phoenix, you start to see some of these cracks. And so what do you tell somebody to do? Buy Bitcoin, buy Litecoin, buy Dogecoin, buy Ethereum. You're not going to go wrong with it at this point. I think the ship has sailed for it to go really kind of much under 20,000. Let's say we chop around and we do go under 20,000 for Bitcoin, or let's say we go down to 1,000 or 800 or something for Ethereum. I don't really see it getting much worse than that. The ship has sailed. There's so much other printing. And so just even compared to the US dollar, I don't think that we see the percentage drawdown, because the money is worth less. The US dollar's worth less. The Australian dollar's worth less. The Canadian dollar's worth less than it was 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago. So again, I wouldn't get too caught up on this 85% drawdown that we expect that Bitcoin would do in most of these cycles that it's done the last couple cycles and stuff, because 40% of the money supply for the US dollar has been printed in the last couple of years. That is uncharted territory. And like I said, the national debt is going parabolic. They're not going to stop this spending. Now, on the opposite side of that, which is, you know, we sit there and do this mental exercise, these mental gymnastics with this thing. Student loan payments have started back up in the United States, you know, and that's tens of millions of people. And they could delay it. They would start paying interest on it, and they could kind of kick the can down the road for another year. But at some point, you think this thing would kind of catch up to them. You do have this auto loan crisis, a lot of people getting repoed, and you do start to have some of these foreclosure stuff rack up in some of these different areas of the country. So it's like, I'm not saying every kind of real estate purchase would be dumb, that this thing's going to fall apart, because it's like, dude, how long does this thing get kicked down the road? It seems obvious that, you know, again, this kind of the silent depression scenario. It seems obvious that this system is going to kind of collapse. We're going to have, you know, a big drawdown like in housing prices and potential certain areas of kind of the auto market. But again, you got supply chain issues in the auto market because of these strikes. The property prices, we don't know what banks will do to sort of like help borrowers kind of kick the can down the road and kind of modify their loan and kick some of the arrears to the end of the loan and kind of keep this thing going, just to get some cash flow out of that stuff, so that they don't end up in a situation like 07 or 08, where there was just so many foreclosures and stuff. So at the end of the day, I wouldn't bank on the fact, I know you might start to get FOMO where you're like, you know, oh shoot, it's just going to be around the corner. It's going to be in 5 days, or it's going to be in 10 days. Bitcoin ETF is going to be approved, and this is going to be this huge, this is going to bang out, and this thing's going to shoot up. And it could, that's always a possibility. I just don't see that as likely, because I just think they're going to push this thing off. And if you're new to crypto, we've been going through this since 2014. There's been Bitcoin spot ETF applications out there since like 2014, and I've lived this over and over again. I've been in crypto for 10 years. So we see this over and over again. Now it does certainly feel like it is closer now than it has been in the past. But that being said, I would not necessarily bank on that. But at the end of the day, you can't bank on just like, you know, saving money in a, you know, in a bank account or something like that. Savers are going to be losers. There's too much inflation. You've got to go to hard assets. Personally, I don't like gold and silver. We don't know how much of it's in the world. The market's manipulated. They control those markets. They don't like the Bitcoin market. They don't control it. It's part of the reason they don't approve this. They don't want it. Those who control Biden, they don't want it. So at the end of the day, I think they'll kick the can down the road. Maybe it gets approved. Maybe it doesn't. Otherwise, regardless, if it does or not, I just think that it's honestly, you know, if you've got the money and you're investing in something, for cryptocurrency to not be part of your portfolio at this point, I think is just, you know, that's nonsensical. And I've always felt like that, to be honest with you, even like, you know, 10 years ago or 5 years ago. But obviously, like, as time goes on, you know, it gains more and more steam. So if bigger money, bigger players can get into it, and it's more attractive. But that being said, the returns are going to be less for these, you know, bigger assets, Bitcoin, Ethereum, this and that. You can't kind of expect as big of a multiple. Expect 3x on Bitcoin, you know, maybe 5x on Ethereum or something like that. Maybe it goes higher, but again, I'm just trying to be conservative. That being said, that's a lot better than you can do in a lot of other markets still at this point. That might be different in 4 years or 8 years, but as of right now, I think we're kind of safe, at least saying that. So, you know, do what you're going to do. Do what you're going to do, but I would not hold your breath for a Bitcoin spot ETF in 2023. I think that we are going to have some more drawdowns. We're going to keep kind of trading in these channels, and people are going to ride the waves. And if you noticed, a lot of the money that was going into Bitcoin seemed to be flowing out of the alts. Now, some money did flow back to the alts, and you did see kind of, and I've mentioned this before, Bitcoin SV, Bitcoin Cash, all that kind of stuff popping off. I just think that was just kind of like auto mining related stuff, where it was like, okay, now it makes more sense to mine Bitcoin. So a bunch of mining equipment flipped over to mining Bitcoin directly instead of mining something like Bitcoin SV and then selling the Bitcoin SV for Bitcoin. And then that kind of changed the buys and sells. And then there wasn't as much sell pressure, and so it banged out. That's my theory on that stuff, because to me, I'm just not seeing it. You know, to go into Bitcoin Cash, or Bitcoin SV, I'm just not seeing that one. I just think it makes so much more sense to go into Litecoin and Dogecoin for so many different reasons. Anyway, that being said, guys, that is my thought process. I'm not holding my breath for Bitcoin spot ETF in 2023. What do you guys think? Follow me on all social media at Brian Phobos, YouTube, Instagram, Steam, at Twitter, Hive, DTube, Blurt, everywhere.